Now, in black society, we saw Prince with the heels and the eyeliner, but Prince would have all the bad chicks from the 80s. Sheila E., Vanity, he had all the bad ones. So we kind of gave him a pass. I'm like, well, damn, do I need to put some heels on to get one of them? You know, he was one of the few people we would get a pass to because we saw how he was getting down.
Yeah, Ikwan is Robo the Rebel. Does Prince being with all the bad chicks in the 80s excuse the femininity and the wearing of women's clothes? That's today's video, but before we get to the video, even a smile is charity, so go ahead and give your brother Sadaka by like, sharing, and subscribing to the channel. So, what there was a post on Facebook. There was a post on Facebook where a young brother, I guess a millennial, basically compared Prince to Lil Nas X. He said, so, if Lil Nas X is pushing a gay agenda and forcing it on everyone, what was Prince doing? And you was silent then. I'll wait. So, excuse me, brothers, I apologize because of some of the images that'll be shown here, but I have to show them in order to show the true context. You won't get the understanding of the true context without being able to see the exact picture. So, what what the brother was saying under this thing may not necessarily be an apples to apples comparison to Lil Nas X, but he did have a point because if you look at the images on the screen here, you know, Prince Prince has on panties. Let's just call it what it is. And the pants with his butt cheeks hanging out, you know, this is very effeminate behavior, and it doesn't. We should not excuse it because he had women in the 80s, right? And yes, now, so here's the thing: the pro blacks will excuse certain behaviors that they criticize in others if it's for someone that they like, right? And some may think, okay, I'm saying pro blacks, and I'm saying those who just claim to be pro black and not necessarily, you got to keep the same energy. And I used a clip of Tariq Nasheed basically saying what most of the people were saying in on the Facebook page, on the Facebook post. Well, they're different. Prince wasn't gay. Prince had women. Prince can sing. Prince was musical. Lil Nas X didn't have talent. That's not the point. The point that the brother asked was if Lil Nas X is pushing an agenda, was Prince? That's the that's the question. Were they pushing the same agenda? And I believe they were. Right? If you take a look at, okay, so here's some images of Prince. Looks, you can't tell, they're very androgynous. Are these three women here? Right? Or are we see this today to where um, we will see a brother, or excuse me, a man that looks like what it looks like appears as a man with a mustache, but looks like a woman. We've seen transgenders with beards and mustaches. This is what Prince looks like here. And of course, it isn't apples to apples comparison, right? This is the 70s and not 2021 with Lil Nas X. Prince wasn't as blatant with it, right? And we can't go on to say that just because he has talent or he got with women, because no one can tell me, no one could prove. We can't prove it. Prince is no longer here, and this is not to denigrate Prince. He was a writer for black people, and I commend that, right? Prince was a writer for black people. He looked at black empowerment in terms of economic empowerment. So, hats off to him for that. But clearly, here, a heterosexual man shouldn't be wearing panties, right? And we can't just say, oh, he was a stage performer. Oh, well, Lil Nas X is doing a lot of this for shock value, right? And I'm not defending Lil Nas X. I'm just calling out. I'm just keeping it 100 and keeping the same energy with the what I see as an agenda to feminize men, right? If you're heterosexual, if you're a heterosexual man, as most of the pro-blacks claim that Prince was, then a heterosexual man, in my book, should not ever wear panties. I don't care if it's a stage or not, right? If that's my stage show, who cares? Look at this. This guy got on zebra underwear. This is on national TV. This is when I think this is the American Music Awards, one of those award shows, and it was the first time it was shown on TV. So he comes out with panties on as a heterosexual man, right? Black man. This denigrates the heterosexual black image. Lil Nas X is clear, right? Nobody argues that. Nobody's arguing that point. I'm clear on what he's doing, and he's clearly trolling, right? But is the agenda the same? The agenda started here. You know, this is where the agenda started. It didn't start with Lil Nas X. It started here with Flip Wilson. Flip Wilson in a dress as Geraldine, right? We can't criticize Martin Lawrence or Eddie Murphy or the Wayans brothers and all these other, Damon Wayans and David Allen Greer and all these other cats for putting on a dress. Kevin Hart. We can't criticize all of those guys for putting on a dress, but then forget about Flip Wilson because, okay, Flip Wilson he owned his show because he was he put on a dress. If he owned his show, then that means he didn't have to do it, and he chose to do it, right? We can't have it both ways. Prince was pro-black, yes, or he was about black empowerment, but he also undermined the black male image by putting on panties and all the lace and everything else that he's doing. He looks androgynous here. I mean, look at this. I mean, this takes the cake. This is absolutely what women wear: the lace, the panties, the leggings. I mean, come on. We got to keep the same energy. Yes, Lil Nas X is pushing an agenda, but the agenda started here with Prince. Pro-black or not, pro-black empowerment or not, he gets credit for that, but he also has to be criticized for wearing panties. So many people were defending him because he had all the bad chicks in the 80s. And nobody can tell me, and of course this is allegedly, right? Alleged. But nobody can tell me that he wasn't a pansexual. If we can hear Quincy Jones talking about how Marlon Brando bust down Marvin Gaye, Richard Pryor, and James Baldwin, right? Nobody questioned the James Baldwin one, but Marvin Gaye and Richard Pryor's kids came out and said, hey, my dad didn't have sex with Marlon Brando, as if they would know, right? Nobody knows what goes on in Hollywood parties, right? I mean, Richard Pryor admitted to having a tranny boyfriend or a transgender boyfriend, or actually he called him the F word. I never forget the joke when I was young because it went over my head. I didn't understand it. I didn't know what that was at the time. And, we sneak and listen to the Richard Pryor records because they used to do them on records back in the day, right? I'm telling my age right now. But nonetheless, they used to put these on records. You had to get them on records. Red Fox, Richard Pryor, all these guys from back in the day, right? Anyway, Richard Pryor had it. So we sneak and listen to it. My dad had him. Me and my brother would sneak and listen to it. And he said, I'll never forget the first time I F my first agate word, right? The first time I ever F the first time I F the first, agate word, right? That's what he said. That's what Richard Pryor said. Now I understand him, the joke was funny and then I laughed, but nonetheless, that dude was telling about his real life. Because now in his autobiography, he stated how it was a known transgender that he was hanging out with, and that was his girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever you call it. But it was known in Hollywood. So he said the first time they get ready to get into it, he said he got down, to perform oral sex, and he said there was something else there. So he was like, he just went on ahead and got with it. It was there, he got with it. I was like, wow, this is in his autobiography, right? So you can't tell me that those guys didn't do this kind of stuff. And it didn't look as if Richard Pryor was more masculine than Prince. Prince looked more effeminate than Richard Pryor. So if this guy could, and then Marvin Gaye, we don't even want to consider Marvin Gaye, and I believe what Quincy Jones said. He had no reason why to make that up. But nonetheless, hey, Prince was about black empowerment. Hey, I rock with him on that part, right? Black people, we have to get our businesses together and we have to get our money together and so forth. But giving him a pass because he had all the baddest chicks in the '80s, he doesn't get a pass for walking around in panties in the '80s and '90s or whenever '70s, '80s, '90s, whenever he was doing it, right? And he got to the point to where he stopped doing it. But hey, the images are out here. That's why we can still pull these images up now. It's terrible, right? And go through the images again here. Yes, it's on the stage, but Lil Nas X is doing stuff for stage presence. Do we think he walks around in that kind of thing all the time? Maybe, I don't know. I doubt it. But nonetheless, and I'm not defending Lil Nas X. I'm just saying it's along the same veins. Is it apples to apples? No. Because clearly the agenda is more defined in 2021 than it was in 1970. You know, the players are different, but the agenda's still the same. The agenda had to start somewhere. Where do people think it started with Lil Nas X? No, it started probably even before this. But these are the first images that I can remember that I'm like, why is this dude dressed up like a girl? And I would say it when I was little. My older sister, she used to listen to Prince records. And I'm like, why is this guy dressed up like a woman? She had the records, what have you. And I'm like, what? It's going over my head at the time. But clearly I remember it. Clearly I remember Flip Wilson back in the 70s walking around as Geraldine. You know what I'm saying? So the agenda started somewhere. And did Prince help to push that further? Yes, he absolutely did. Now, was he about black empowerment? Yes, he was. Was he woke? And and I think a lot of that reason why Tariq Nasheed gives him big props is for that. He's about black empowerment, which I get it. I am also, right? I agree with it 100%. Black people, we have to own and control the resources in our communities, right? It's the only way we will ultimately get ahead. That's one of the things. Obviously, building families helps with the economic, socioeconomic piece, but controlling businesses and owning our own businesses and resources, we have to do that. But I think another thing is a little bit more self-serving, because Prince would buy Hidden Colors and give those DVDs out to his friends. He was a big supporter of Hidden Colors, so I think that's one of the reasons why Tariq won't criticize him as much, even though clearly this kind of thing. Tariq has he does the group Mink Slide, what have you. You'll never see him in this. Why? Because he knows this is not the way black men should roll. Absolutely 100%. Black men should not roll this way. Should black men roll the way Lil Nas X does? No, either. But I mean, come on, it's a thing. We got to call it how it is. Both push the agenda to some point, right? The other excuse that I heard was, well, Prince was just being himself. So wait a minute, heterosexual black man with panties on? I don't get that. Now, how is that being yourself? I said, they were like, well, he wasn't kissing men. So I'm reading these comments and I'm thinking like, he wasn't kissing men. Well, you said he's heterosexual, so of course he would. But Lil Nas X is gay, so he would kiss men. I don't understand the argument. Like, yes, they're not, because one is self-acclaimed that he's gay, and one is, well, he never claimed what his sexuality was. We just saw him with a bunch of women. So of course they're going to do different things. You're going to see one with women. You're going to see one with men. And I don't co-sign the thing with men, and I don't co-sign a heterosexual man wearing panties. So, that's my final thoughts, man. We have to be consistent in the black community. We have to call it out, even if it's somebody that we love. Prince, that was the other point. Prince is a musical genius. Lil Nas X has no talent. Okay, no problem. I agree. I like Prince records or whatever. I used to listen to whatever it was back in the day. I mean, I don't listen to his music now, but he made good music. I can admit he's a good musician. But did he push that agenda as well? Yeah, by wearing panties. He absolutely did. So, again, like I said, those are my final thoughts. We have to be consistent in the black community, keep the same energy, and wherever we see the foolishness and it's destroying the black male image, no matter who's doing it, we have to call it out, and we have to have some integrity, even if it's the people that uh, We like their music. We like them. You know, they have a black empowerment mindset. We have to call it out. So, till the next time, assalamu alaikum.